right, welcome into the fifth installment of the Racing Pigeon Podcast with Kevin, the pigeon racer, and Wes, the novice trying to figure out what's going on. So, we've got a regular podcast this week, no interviews, but we do want to cover some topics. So, Kevin, what's the topics for today?
Well, today, Wes, we're going to discuss a couple things. I'm going to give you a little update about what's going on behind me over here in the loft. We can talk quickly about what's happening in the breeding season, the young bird season. And
Okay.
then we're going to talk about pedigrees. What is a pedigree? Does it matter if a bird has a pedigree or not? So we'll just kind of discuss some misconceptions about pedigrees and myths about pedigrees and some truths about pedigrees. And then in our second segment, we'll kind of discuss, pigeon speeds. How fast can a pigeon fly and different conditions and things like that. So,
Sounds good. My camera doesn't seem to know what it's doing. And I am having some audio trouble on my side. You said you can hear me okay there, right?
yeah, I
Everything
got
okay?
you. Loud and
All
clear.
right. Well, you want to start out before we go to our first break with what's going on behind you?
Well, what's going on behind me is I've got my second round young birds out today for the very first time ever. So they are out with the few remaining I have from the first round that the hawk didn't pick off. So
Did you have a, well, we were recording that one day. We were picking some of those off, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I did lose about four young birds from the first round. I didn't have many in the first round. I sent most of them out to other races. But this round, I've got about 20 birds that have come up in the second round here that'll be flying for me in the fall. And
Okay.
today is the very first day they've ever been outside. As you can see, that one there's just having a good old time back there. But this is the first time they've ever been out to stretch their wings, so to speak. And so I'm just kind of recording the podcast and also on hawk duty out here in the
On hawk
backyard.
duty again.
So on hawk
But
duty
you
again.
you spotted a
This is
couple of
the
hawks, but you said they flew off, so it was too hot, right?
yeah. When I first came out today, there was a couple hawks in the backyard. Well, when I let them out, of course, it drew the hawks over here. But they quickly departed. They didn't get anything today. Luckily, I came out in time, and now it's the warmest part of the day, so we should be okay. They're going to come back this evening for sure. So I got to make sure
Yeah.
all these guys are called in by then, but I'll do that with the food and the whistle, and we'll call them in. A lot of them have already went back in due to the Hawks' arrival.
Yeah.
They're like, nope, we're going back in. We'll try another day, which is fine. They have the freedom to go back in. They just can't come back out. The bobs are down, if you can see the video. So once they go in, they're stuck in,
Gotcha.
which is fine. That's okay for today. But they got their first hawk lesson today, unfortunately. Again, but that's kind of what I'm doing out here in the backyard. So I'd rather be in the
And
nice air condition, but got to be out here to watch the babies. So
and how many more what do you call when you actually have rounds?
a
I wouldn't
round is
say
a
births
breeding a
or
breeding round. Yeah.
a
So
breeding
I do
round is how you call it.
yeah. So I do three rounds. The third round babies are some of them have already hatched. In fact, I've banded a few already, and then there are still some eggs out there left to hatch. Basically, so what I do is this coming Friday will be my last day. So any eggs laid before that Friday, I will allow them to hatch. They'll
Okay.
fit into my program, my schedule. But any eggs laid after Friday, you're done. You won't be
Okay.
allowed to hatch. Those eggs will be replaced with fake eggs. So the parents won't know any better. But that's how we start to shut down the breeding season
Okay.
for the year because those babies would be simply too young by the time we start racing in September to be competitive. So you have to kind of have a cutoff, a
And as you
period.
mentioned in an earlier podcast, it really depends on your location of the country where you start to cut that off.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the breeders up north are only on their first round right now.
Right. Okay.
Because it was simply so cold up there. But down here, we start in December, and so by now I'm ready to be done. It's been a lot of babies, a lot of work all winter, and
And a lot of
so
hawks.
and a lot of hawks, yeah. And it's time to wrap give the breeders a break. Obviously breeding is stressful on those, as we talked about in our breeding episode. Even when their babies are 2.5, 3 weeks old, they're already laying their next round of eggs. So it is just continuous for them. It's a lot on the breeder birds. So again, I like to go three rounds and then we're done. We're done till next year.
Okay.
Give
All
everybody
right.
a break.
Well, just a little jump ahead. I know we've got some things planned for the future. Obviously, we've got more interviews coming.
Yep.
We are working on having a veterinarian kind of in-house
We
veterinarian that going to
we've
have on for
got one. Yeah.
multiple
So
segments.
yep. So I've secured our veterinarian, our resident expert veterinarian. And we're going to start recording actually this upcoming week
Okay,
some
great.
segments with him. So we'll introduce him to everybody in an upcoming episode, and then he'll join us once or twice a month, where we'll cover a health topic each time he's on with us. So it'll stretch out 6, 7, 8 months. We'll have him on sporadically
Hmm.
to talk about different things. But yeah, so we'll introduce him soon to everybody, but that's
Okay,
coming up.
more
And then
interviews coming, and then
on
more segments on raising and racing.
Yeah, yeah, and I should also talk about Wes. We probably this intro is the longest one we've ever done, so we might as well just keep going.
All right.
Um, RP auctions. We've introduced a new feature on RP auctions, and that is that buyers and sellers can now rate each other after the sale. So you can leave feedback and you can leave like a 4-star, 5-star rating, and that is a public rating.
Okay.
So it's sort of like what eBay does, right? Or some of these other auction companies. But we are the only US based pigeon auction site that has this feature. None of the other ones do. And why did we do it? Again, to build trust. We value trust and transparency at rpauctions.com. We don't want to play games with people. If people are on there selling sick pigeons or pigeons that are just not what they're presented to be, then we want to give you an avenue to alert future users of our site that this person may not be who they say they are, or selling what they say they're selling. And then on the flip side, the people that are doing a really good job on our website, we want them to have that feedback as well, so
Right.
that people can see that they're selling good, healthy stock, good stock. And so we just want both sides to have that transparency. And so I thought that was pretty important. So it's a new feature we added to the site, and both the Show Pigeon Auction site and RP Auctions both have that feature enabled now. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Sounds good. Speaking of sponsors, that's two of our sponsors, obviously.
yeah,
And we have the third sponsor being,
yep. Electrofly Plus, yep.
okay.
The pigeon supplement,
And
yep,
we're still looking for some more. And I would say we've had you've been offering, we haven't said it on air, but we've got an introductory offer
yep,
for the first two or three that come on board. Obviously, one of
yep,
them's already come on board, but the next
yep,
two or
yep,
three, you'll get special pricing. You just
yep,
contact Kevin.
yep,
He's our salesperson on the ad side, and I'll
yep,
be
yep.
producing it, make sure it gets on the air just like you want it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that, with the veterinarian segments coming up, we're going to be talking about a lot of products, medicines, medications, supplements. This will be a great time for if you have a pigeon supply business, or, a pigeon medication business or supplement business. This would be a good time to get in on the advertising level. And then we can actually talk about your products perhaps when we, do these segments with our resident veterinarian expert.
Sounds good. Well, speaking of such, let's listen for our first sponsor, and we'll jump into our first segment.
Sounds good. Electrofly Plus. Champions take flight with Electrofly Plus, a fully water-soluble supplement with vitamins, electrolytes, and avian-specific direct-fed probiotics built for serious fanciers. Each serving delivers 19 billion probiotics with essential electrolytes and vitamins to support hydration, gut balance, and recovery. Used during training, transport, heat, breeding, weaning, or any stressful period when birds need extra support. Simply mix in drinking water. Clean, simple, effective. Follow at Electrofly Company on social media and order online at jeds.com, pigeonmart.com, or foyspetsupplies.com, or pick it up at any of those locations. Electrofly Plus. Champions take flight.
All right, welcome back into the first segment of the Racing Pigeon Podcast with Kevin and Wes. And our topic for this segment is pedigrees. And you are telling me on our reel this week that yes and no, they matter. So why
Yeah.
don't you be a little more specific than your 5 seconds of the tease last week?
All right. So I guess for new people to the sport, maybe we should start with what is a pedigree, right? What are we talking about? So a pedigree is just um, a written lineage of of your bird. It's just like how people who are into what is it called? Genealogy, I guess.
Genealogy,
Humans that do the
ancestry,
genealogy, yeah,
genealogy.
ancestry, right? Your parents, and then their parents, and then their parents, and then you trace your family. We call it a family tree, right?
Right.
A pedigree is basically a family tree for a bird. Um, Now, pigeon the pigeon hobby is not the only animal hobby that has pedigrees. Pedigrees, I believe, are prevalent in horse racing. They're very prevalent in dog showing of dogs. I don't know anything about showing cats, but I believe they probably use something similar there
They
to a
show
pedigree.
cats too.
Yeah, I believe there are cat shows. Yeah,
Wow.
I've heard of them. Yeah, some of the fancy breeds of cats and so forth. Yeah. So a pedigree is not something that's specific to a pigeon or to our hobby. In fact, on the show or fancy pigeon side of the hobby, pedigrees are much used way less.
Really?
There are
Okay.
some over on that side of the sphere of the pigeon world, but the racing pigeons is where pedigrees are really like hyped up.
Hmm.
It's really the major thing. And so people's opinions vary on, you know, the weight that one should place on what's in a bird's pedigree.
Hmm.
Uh, so in the racing pigeon world, a pedigree goes a little bit beyond just lineage. It does list the parents and it does list those parents' parents and so forth and so forth. But it is also a record of each bird's accomplishments. So when we list, here's this bird, okay, and typically this is what will be listed on a pedigree. You'll have the band number, the year the bird was born, if it's not in the band number. So you get some sort of a sense of the age of the bird. You'll have its gender, cock or hen. Obviously, that's going to tell you where it goes in the pedigree.
Hmm.
Typically, they also note the color of the bird. So it'll be a blue bar, a blue check, black, grizzle. That'll be listed on there as well. And then finally, it's going to be any accomplishments the bird has will be listed there. This bird won the 200-mile race versus 500 birds, blah, 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 blah. They're going to put all of that on there. Or if it didn't actually race, it'll say, oh, this bird is the sire of a 300-mile winner at the whatever race, whatever
Okay.
race,
Yeah.
whatever race. So it's more than just a lineage. It's a picture of past performance. Um, so in a way, it kind of is a way to cement our bloodlines or communicate our bloodlines down through history. I mean, I've got birds in the loft that I can trace their you know lineage back 30 years.
Really? Wow.
It is possible to go way back into the 90s and say, oh, this bird's great grandsire was from Europe in 1992. He flew in the French whatever race. I mean, you can go that far back and see it, but the question is, does that matter, right? Does it matter? And so this is where I don't want to say argument, but this is where
The debate.
the debate
Yeah.
comes to play, right?
Right.
There are people in the sport who that is all they look at is the pedigree. That is how they make every decision, whether it's breeding, flying, buying and selling decisions. It is based solely on the pedigree. They believe in certain bloodlines and just all these things, right? And then on the flip side, there are people that don't even keep pedigrees on their birds. That's how little value they place on a pedigree. Um, those people are kind of dying out, literally. They're retiring from the sport. It's generally the older generation, generally,
Yeah.
that discredits the value of a pedigree. And it is typically the younger people in the sport that place more value on a pedigree. But even that says something, right? Like, who's right? Were the older people correct that they really don't matter?
Mm.
And why have the younger people been convinced that it does matter? And so that's the running debate. And I'm not here to solve the debate. I can't.
Yeah.
We can't. that is where we'd love to hear from, you guys that are listening out there. Shoot us an email, racingpigeonpodcast@gmail.com, and let us know, what
Yeah.
you think about pedigrees,
Comment
right?
on YouTube, comment on Spotify, Apple.
Or on Facebook too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
So everywhere, everywhere.
But let us know what you think, and let's hear from you guys. Now, I know there's people on both sides of the argument. I mean, I already know that
Yeah.
just being in the hobby over 10 years now. I have met people and I see people on Facebook arguing about it all the time or debating it all the time, right?
Yeah. Debate's better. Let's debate.
Debate's better. Yeah. Well, let's face it, it is an argument. But like we try to keep it PC. But so, you know, and I don't really have an answer. I do have pedigrees for most of the birds that I own, but not all. I was given some black eagles, which is a family of black pigeons, and that is all I know about them is they're black eagles. Okay, I don't know anything about them. I have no lineage at all. I don't even know who their parents were.
Yeah.
Um, so I have bred them, and I have flown some of them, and some of them have done well, and some of them haven't. So again, I don't know. Here's what I do know, Wes. I have never yet seen a piece of paper go in that loft over there first. In fact, I've never seen a piece of paper fly around the yard.
And you
Okay.
haven't seen one win a race.
I haven't seen a piece of paper win a race. Exactly. So I do question some people that place so much value on a piece of paper because I've never seen a piece of paper win a one loft race. I've never seen a piece of paper win a club race, combine race.
Well, I would think it would be playing devil's advocate, looking from the other side, is just knowing that there is some line of success that you're getting. And I mean, if you think about horse racing and all too, same kind of thing. You want to make sure the breed that you're getting has been bred for what you're trying to accomplish. And so I could see where people would want to look at that. But you also have horses that come out of nowhere and win it with really no pedigree that they should be
Yeah,
winning, a big race.
very
So,
true. Very
so
true.
you can play. I can see where you can be on both sides.
Yep. But here's something, taking it a step further to be not to create any more doubt in people's mind. But do you realize I can put anything I want to on that piece of paper?
Yeah. So
I,
what
I
you're
mean,
saying,
I couldn't.
there's no organization that's monitoring this.
There's no organization that is in charge of the pedigrees. Pedigrees are made by each individual breeder. We make the pedigrees and we use a computer program that you can manipulate. I mean, I can literally,
Yeah, well, that makes
I
sense.
can pretend I bred from a bird that I don't even have in this loft. I can
Yeah.
look it up online. It could be somebody else's bird, and I could put it on my pedigree, and back a few generations. Now, who's gonna know?
Well, it comes down, and when we first started the auction site, you talked about how the hobby and how the community mostly are very ethical people. I mean, so you're always going to have somebody who plays around. I get it. You're going to
Yep.
find somebody who's manipulating the system.
Yep.
But I know one thing that stuck out to me when we started looking at these ventures that we're in is that you just believe that this community is a little bit different than a lot of communities. There's a lot of moral and ethical people they're just trying to have a hobby, have fun, enjoy something,
Yep.
and not looking to beat the system.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I have shown dogs in the past, so I've been in that hobby as well quite a while
From
ago.
from
And
you and another mutual friend of ours, that one seems pretty cutthroat.
that one is full of, yeah. Um, and the thing is about the dog showing world is they actually have an organization
Yeah,
that has, a code of ethics and has a breeder standard and does try to monitor every part of that sport. And it is still one of the most just,
I can say it. I'm not in it. Corrupt.
yeah, yeah. Just there are so many dishonest people in the dog showing world. And I'm sorry if you guys are in that world. There are honest people as well.
Oh
But
yeah,
compared to the racing pigeon world, I think we have a lot more honest people,
yeah.
more people that are more up and up. But there are people in the racing pigeon world that are a little they have a little lower moral standard
Yeah.
than some of us.
Well, you'll
We're
find
human
that
beings,
anywhere.
and
Yeah.
you're going to run into that in everything. Every part of life, you're going to run into those people that just are that way.
Yeah.
But I think we do a pretty good job here. So, but the bottom line at the end of the day is, you know, I wouldn't be afraid of not buying a bird without a pedigree, um, especially if it's a bird you can handle in person.
Hmm.
When you can physically, handle the birds in person, you know, hopefully you're a good enough pigeon person to be able to, feel what you need to feel in the bird,
Right.
and not rely on that piece of paper. If you're buying birds on an auction or online, then the piece of paper is probably uh, a little more important, because you're not able to physically see the bird or lay hands on the bird. And
Right.
so the piece of paper is probably going to play a more important role in your decision of whether to bid on that bird or how much to pay for that bird. If the buyer is or the seller is trustworthy, of course.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of why we enabled a new feature on RP auctions, not to keep bringing that up, but this rating system, that we can hopefully issue or pull back a layer of transparency. The other auction
Yeah.
systems do not allow buyers or sellers to rate each other, and so I just thought it would be a good idea. It's just another feature that sets our site apart, makes our site more transparent at a lower cost to everybody, and I feel like it helps the pigeon sport ultimately. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the pedigree discussion.
Okay.
But again, we'd love to hear from our listeners, and let us know what y'all think about the value of a pedigree.
Sounds good. Well, let's hear from one of our sponsors and we'll come back with our last segment.
All right, pigeon people, listen up. And yes, I know you're out there. If you're tired of your birds giving you that, you could have upgraded me by now. Look, it's time to visit rpauctions.com. This is the hot spot where racing pigeon breeders buy, sell, and outbid each other like it's the Super Bowl of feathers. The site's easy to use, the birds are top notch, and the bidding gets, let's just say, intense. So do your loft a favor. Head over to rpauctions.com and find a bird that won't judge you every time you walk by.
All right, welcome back into the Racing Pigeon Podcast with Wes and Kevin, the expert in pigeon racing, right? 10 years? I think that qualifies you as an expert.
Yeah, I don't think I'm an expert, but
Yeah,
I know more than you.
you know a lot more than I do, as the listeners can tell. They're probably like, why is he even talking to Wes? He doesn't know anything.
It's all right.
I'm here
Otherwise,
to
I'd be
ask the
talking to myself.
questions. I do that often anyway, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh
My
gosh.
age showing. But our last topic today is speed, and you've already answered on the reels. It all depends on the weather, which it kind of makes sense. But we want to
Yeah.
elaborate on just what we're talking about there, because obviously the weather does have a big bearing on what's going on in a race. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you do want to look at the velocity that these
Yep.
are flowing at. So,
Yep.
and probably I'd like to know a little bit about how you trace them in a race. We've talked about it before,
Mhm.
but just how does speed tracked in the race?
Yeah. So we track speed again by yards per minute. So when a bird is released from point A, flies home to point B, it's how many yards per minute did it take to get there? The computer does that automatically. So we do not calculate miles per hour.
Right.
However, there is a mathematical formula.
Yeah.
Don't ask me what it is right now, but
Oh, we can
y'all can
find out
Google it.
quickly.
There's a mathematical formula that you can take yards per minute and translate that into miles per hour.
Right.
Okay. So you can have AI help you do that or something if you'd like. But there is a formula but that's how we report and how we know which bird won the race. The bird that flies the fastest yards per minute obviously is the winner of the race, right? And so when we talk about speed, let's talk about how fast a pigeon can fly on a windless day. So
Okay.
if there's no wind at all, just a dead calm day. Now, again, there are some other factors like humidity and things like that, but we're just we're ballparking it here. A pigeon can generally fly like 40 to 42, 43 miles an hour on just a dead calm day. All right.
Okay.
So that's your kind of like average speed, I guess you'd say, that a pigeon can fly. However, sometimes if you have a race that ends up being what we call a tailwind race, which is where there is obviously, I'm outside, there's a breeze, right?
Right.
If the pigeons are flying in the same direction as the breeze, that breeze is literally pushing them along, just like it would a kite or, a hot air balloon or something like that. So they're being pushed by the wind.
Tailwind.
Yeah, let's call it a tailwind. And if
Oh,
that
he's under that's
tailwind,
because of airplanes.
yeah, yeah,
Same
yeah, yeah.
kind of
Well,
same kind of
we
thing.
call it the same thing.
Yep.
Yep, we call it the same thing. So if the pigeons are encountering a tailwind, they can actually reach speeds upward of 60 miles per hour.
Wow.
Because it's pushing them along, right? They're basically just sailing right along. And that's easy for them. It's not a lot of work. They can basically just ride the wind home, is what I say. So they can get upwards of 60 miles per hour. Now, what if they have a headwind? What if they have to fly directly into,
Right.
they're going the opposite direction of the wind. So we call that a headwind, right?
Right.
They're flying head first into the wind. You can have pigeons flying as low as 30, 28 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Get home. It just depends how strong that wind is, right? So 40 to 45 is like the average,
Okay.
right? No wind. Can get pushed 60 depending on the speed of your tailwind, right? If you got a 25, 30 mile per hour tailwind, then pigeons are booking home, right?
Right.
Conversely, if you let your pigeons out in a 25 mile per hour headwind, they're probably ain't making more than about 28 miles an hour trying to get home. So most of us don't really want our pigeons flying in too strong of headwinds. If I have more than 10 mile per hour headwind, I'm not gonna train the birds. But unless I really want to give them a workout for some reason. But yeah. So that's kind of the lowdown on speed. And I guess
The just so you know, the 29.33 yards per minute is 1 mile an hour.
okay. Okay.
I
There you
think
go.
that's right. Yep, 1 mile an hour. So 45 miles an hour would be 1,320 yards per minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, that 1250 to 1300, that's what you're going to get on a dead calm day. So right
Okay.
there, like 42 to 44 miles an hour, that's about what a normal pigeon could fly, under just normal conditions, basically no wind conditions.
Gotcha.
Yep. So, but
But
I've seen races where the pigeons have clocked in, and you can do the math now, Wes. I've seen races where pigeons have clocked in doing 2,000 yards per minute.
that would be 68 miles an hour,
There you
actually.
go.
And that's with a tailwind.
Yeah, that's pretty rare,
So
but
I know we've
I've
talked
seen
about
it.
this before, but
Mhm.
when you're doing racing, local racing,
Yeah,
your local loft racing, the starting point is the same, but the end points are all different.
that's right.
So I mean, I would think that sometimes that will cost you some time because
Absolutely.
especially at the end, some are getting a tailwind and some may be getting a headwind or no wind at all.
Absolutely. Yep. So that's the fun thing about club racing is it's anybody's game, right? Because it depends where you are in relation to all your competitors and what the wind's doing that particular race day.
Yeah.
And honestly, that determines a lot of times who actually does win the race, which is, puts me at a disadvantage because in my club, I'm the closest one to the ocean. And we
Oh,
know, living
really?
over here along the coast, what happens the closer you get to the water.
Headwinds. Definitely coming
There
into
you
it.
go. So while my
But wait,
competitor's
okay. So what
bird,
does that say about you? Because I'll blow you on horn here for a second. You were first in your club last year, were you not?
I was, yes.
So
But I did not
when are
win.
your pigeons going up for auction? I'm just kidding.
But I did not win the final three races, the longest three.
Oh, okay.
And again, I think wind definitely had a factor in that,
Yeah.
But I am generally at a disadvantage because the birds that live over in Aner, they're down and they've got home basically in no wind, and mine still have 20 miles to go, and what turns very quickly into a headwind the closer they get from home.
Gotcha.
So it does
And
make my
being at
birds a
the
little
end
more
of the
challenging,
race,
and they're already
we
tired.
are tired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough. That's why I have to work extra hard with my birds. They have to be
Well,
in even extra
and
condition.
I was going to bring that up. We've been having segments on health and how to breed, how to get them to right peak point to race. So if someone like you who is in this situation, you've got to make sure your birds are healthy and ready to race each time they go out.
Absolutely. Or I will not win. I won't stand a chance typically. So
So I not to put you on the spot, but on those last three races, what place did you come in? How far were you from the top? As far as
Not far. Like on the final race, which was a 350-mile race, but for me it was like 362 miles because again I'm the
okay,
furthest one.
12 more miles.
I had my first place bird was seventh overall in the race.
That's not
So I
bad.
mean,
Yeah.
I think I was the second place individual flyer, but my bird was seventh. So
So
no,
do you
I
think it
still
was
did well
just
in that.
the you think it was just the winds, or is it a combination of he's gonna hit those winds, and by that time he is tired?
Yeah.
Longest race.
It's definitely never one thing.
Right.
I also was not training as heavily towards the end, and so there were some things I could have
Life
probably
gets in the
planned
way, you know.
differently as well. Yeah, exactly. It's starting to get colder, and the mornings were dark and cold, and I didn't want to get up and train the birds as much. And
Well, you also by that time were the only economist working at your present school because the other one left you. But that's a whole nother
yeah,
story.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those of you who
Yep,
don't know, that's how we met each other. We're both economists at the same school.
we were till one of
Yeah,
us left.
yep. But now you have all the power. You're by yourself, so you can make your own
Yeah,
time, make your own schedule, Kevin.
sure. Um, but yeah, so it's interesting, that pigeons' speed can really vary, based on the wind conditions they're facing and atmospheric conditions they're facing, things like that. That is when I wish a hawk would chase the birds. Is on the race day when they get close to home, chase them on home, hawk. Come on, get them a little faster, right? Of course, for some reason the hawks are never here on race day, which I'm glad because that actually is not something you want to happen. But
No, that would
I
be
was
very.
joking.
I think
But
you lose some birds that way.
yeah, but it's very interesting. Now, here's what's even more interesting. If we link up this segment to our pedigree segment, generally there are some people that believe that there are certain bloodlines that fly better in tailwind races, and then there's certain bloodlines that are going to do better in headwind races. And so again,
Ah,
this is something that people will look at pedigrees to try to, determine, oh, this family of birds seems to fly really well, in tough headwind races. And oh, this family of birds really excels at a place like in Florida, where Florida typically always has tailwind races that are super fast. So this is where some more like debate misconceptions come in. Like, can a bird that wins a race in Florida also win a race in New York or Oregon or what? Right? Like, and so we could probably have a whole other segment on that, right?
right.
But it's just there's so much in this sport that is unknown that creates controversy or debatable
More
topics.
debates. Yep.
And that's another one, right? Like, well, are there birds that are bred for speed, and then are there birds that are bred for more endurance? Or can a pigeon handle both speed and endurance? Can one bird do it all?
Right.
And so maybe those are things we'll talk about down the road.
Sounds like a plan. More
Yeah.
segments to come on that stuff.
Yes. Always. Always. But leave us your thoughts. You leave us your thoughts on pedigrees. Leave us your thoughts on, do you think there are birds that only fly good in tailwind races or only fly good in headwind races? What are your thoughts on that? What's your experience has been? And again, if somebody wants to come on a future podcast, be a guest and tell us some stories, and this kind of stuff, love to have you on. So send
Racing
us an
Pigeon
email.
Podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear
Yep.
from you,
Or send us a message on Facebook too.
which Kevin checks all the time.
I do. I'm on Facebook all the time. Probably need to go in there now.
All right. Well, we'll end up so you can get on there, but we'll hear from our last sponsor, and we will see y'all next week on the Racing Pigeon Podcast.
See you next week, guys. This segment is brought to you by ShowPigeonAuctions.com, the brand new online home for the show and fancy pigeon community. The site is officially live, the doors are open, and now it's our turn as a community to help it take flight. Right now is the perfect moment for breeders and exhibitors to jump in, create an account, and be among the very first to list birds. Every great marketplace starts with a few dedicated people who believe in building something together. And that's exactly what ShowPigeonAuctions.com is aiming to do. If you want to support a platform made specifically for our hobby, or you've got a bird you're proud to showcase, head over and get started. ShowPigeonAuctions.com. Let's grow this community one listing at a time.